All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to your Wednesday night webinar. I am Dr. Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer of NoCD, and tonight's webinar is, of course, informational purposes only. We will not be giving out actual therapy, but, some things that you might want to consider and see how it goes. So, if you're looking for a therapist anywhere in the US or Canada or the United Kingdom or Australia, NoCD has therapists available for you. We do take insurance, and we continue to try to get more and more insurance coverages all the time. So those of you who are waiting for your insurance to cover or to be covered, stay tuned, because we are continuously working on those types of things. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions have come in already. So let's see what we can get to tonight and work on it. So Kylie says, I have severe body dysmorphia, which is an OCD-related disorder. You're constantly checking your appearance, similar to checking OCD. How do you deal with the distress when you cannot check? Thanks. Well, that would be the response prevention piece. And of course, that would be the absolute goal of what we would want to do, is to work on not checking. So you say, how do you deal with it? Well, how about this? What do you have to deal with, Kylie? I'm going to ask you to think about that. You say that there's distress, but that really is the goal of treatment, is to learn that you can handle distress, right? I mean, ultimately, that's what we would want to do, would be to learn that we can handle the distress of not getting to do the behavior that we would typically do in order to try to feel good, right? And in OCD, that behavior is a compulsion. In BDD, that might be checking. In hoarding, that might be somewhat acquiring things, but really hoarding is a problem of discarding things. So it could be not discarding something that can really be discarded. And doing all of those things because they feel so very good in the moment, and yet aren't very good for us, of course, in the long term. So Kylie, instead of wondering how to deal with the distress when you cannot check, I want you to recognize something. The goal is to experience that distress and learn how to handle it. And you may say, well, it's too much. I can't do it. It's too overwhelming. And believe me, that is your disorder speaking to you, saying to you, oh, there's no way that you'll ever be able to deal with this. There's no way you'll ever be able to handle this. You can't deal with it. You can't handle it. You can't take it. But I want to challenge you, and I want you to recognize something. That is just simply not true. Because if it was true, then nobody would ever face a fear. Nobody would ever sit in discomfort. No one would ever live with discomfort. No one would ever handle anything unless everything felt great all of the time. So for all of you listening, you have a goal, all right? Doesn't matter if it's OCD, if it's BDD, if it's hoarding. Your goal is going to be this: to learn that you can handle being uncomfortable, and that you don't have to listen to everything that your brain is telling you, because most of it is a lie, right? Most of it is absolutely a lie. And so I don't want you to listen to everything that is kind of running through your head and telling you, you can't handle this, it's too much, there's no way you can deal with this, you're never going to be able to have the strength to endure this, and all those kinds of things. which are all designed to get you to go back and do the immediately gratifying thing, to do the checking, to do the washing, to do the cleaning, to do the researching, to do whatever it is that you do in that moment to feel as good as you possibly can. I'll tell you what, those are the things that we are really working on in therapy. And I think the next question here looks like maybe a little exercise going to lead. Chloe says, I'm not doing so well right now. My OCD seems to have gotten worse since I entered a relationship, and you're moving to another city soon. You're trying to really tackle it because your relationship is important, but whenever you try to accept uncertainty, you feel this instant wave of depression come over you where you can only imagine the worst case scenario. It doesn't feel empowering and only depressing. Also, I know you probably won't answer this, but in your career, has everyone ever ended treatment and their OCD fear was right all along? I've not seen that, so I will answer that. I've not seen that, and I will only answer that once, so that's all I will do. But, all right, so let's just pick a worst case scenario right now and see if worst case scenarios come true because of imagination. So, everybody watching, and I mean everybody watching this right now, all right, I want you to stare at your ceiling, and I want you to join me in 15 seconds of the most powerful wishing or praying or hoping or wanting or desiring that you can muster for the building you're in right now to collapse upon you and crush you to death. Go. Come on, beams. We can crush me down, take me out. 5 more seconds of wishing and hoping here. Come on. Maybe that light will loosen up a little bit and crash upon me. 3, 2, 1. Okay. It appears, Chloe, that though we imagine things, it doesn't cause them to occur. And you will all say to me, yes, but what if next time is the time? So let's do it again, everyone. Another 15 seconds of staring at our ceilings and wishing for the ceilings to collapse upon us all. Go. Maybe it'll be an earthquake or something causing mass destruction upon me. 3, 2, 1, still here. But you might say, yes, but what if the next time? And we could just do this for the next hour if you would like to, and play that game. Or we might get to a point finally where we're like, I could waste my life worrying about every next time and only think about that. Or I could be like, okay, well, yeah, there's a chance. There's a possibility. But just because there is doesn't mean that it's highly probable. Now, Chloe, you talked there about your OCD using other emotions against you as well too. OCD does love to throw other emotions into the mix as well too. So you think about this and then you get really depressed. Well, OCD will say, well, then just do your compulsion and you won't feel that depression anymore. But all of it is a ploy and a part of the game of OCD, just throwing crap bombs at you, trying to nail you in the head with them, and you'll be like, "Oh gosh, that's horrible. As long as I do what my OCD wants me to do, everything will be fine and all will be okay, and it will be wonderful." And that's what I should do. But you know what? I have never once believed anything that OCD has said to anyone because I've never seen OCD throw a truth bomb. I've only seen it throw live crap bombs at people, but never a truth bomb. And you can all use that, by the way, crap bombs. That'll be our statement of the night. But if OCD did preach the truth, then you'd have to ask yourselves, why did this guy devote a career to helping OCD go away if OCD was truthful? right? Think about that. I mean, what a jerk I would be, and maybe I am. Some people might think so, but what a jerk I might be if my goal in life was to help people get rid of something that was helpful to them. Looks like you got a little bit of that OCD. I know that's helpful, but we should make that go away. No, that's not the way that we do it. That's not how it works. That's not how it's done. So we're not here to do that. What have we talked about here? And what I want everybody to really understand, OCD is predictable and uses the same pattern over and over and over and over and over again. So honestly, there's very little reason to be afraid of anything that OCD throws at you because it's Grover in the monster at the end of the book, right? It's the emperor who's not wearing any new clothes. And yet you'll all say to me, but it feels so real, right? Or why does it have to be this thing? Why why does it have to be about my relationship? Or why do I keep being afraid that I will have schizophrenia or all of these kinds of things? Why does it have to be that? Because that's the thing you fear. That's somewhere in your head you had a little notion of, geez, that would really stink if my relationship went bad, or boy, I would hope I would never have schizophrenia. And OCD will be like, what? Oh, hey, oh, yeah, yeah. Wow, why don't I pick on that? I'll give you a surefire guaranteed way to make sure that you'll never get it. And I'll give you a surefire guaranteed way to make sure your relationship sticks around forever. Just do all the compulsions that I tell you to do, and then all will be fine and everything will be okay. There you go. So you have choices, everyone. You really do. You can go back and check and look in the mirror and feel good in the moment, but miserable for the rest of your life. Or you can decide, I'm going to have to learn how to be uncomfortable now in order to be more comfortable later. You can feel that depression feeling and recognize it for what it is, a ploy of OCD to try to get you to do whatever you can do to do what the OCD wants you to do. Or you can recognize it as you currently are, which is, oh my gosh, what if I never feel anything but this depression ever again? Oh, this OCD is so horrible. It throws this at me. Oh my gosh, I can't deal with this. I better do a compulsion to make it go away. And I'll just give you a little hint on something here from the depression piece. If depression could be made to go away by a compulsion, don't you think therapists would teach everyone with depression how to do compulsions? So that nobody would ever again need to be on any kind of antidepressant medication or would ever come to our offices with any symptom of depression whatsoever. They would walk in and say, I'm feeling kind of down. Oh, here's a compulsion. And they would do, and they'd say, Dr. McGrath, I can't believe it. I feel wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, of course. I mean, look how easy depression is to cure. One compulsion takes care of it. That's all you need to do. Oh, Dr. McGrath, I noticed it's coming back again. Oh, just do the compulsion again. Okay, so you're telling me this: as long as I continuously do this compulsion, that'll keep my depression away? Absolutely. Thank you for the cure of depression. And then you're going to come back in a week. Dr. McGrath, I don't have depression anymore, but I can't seem to do anything in my life but this compulsion anymore. Yeah, well, that's the price of not having depression is must do this compulsion. Yeah, yeah. It's not the way it works, right? That's just not how it goes. It's what we wish would happen many times, right? I mean, why can't there just be a quick fix? Why can't there be an immediate cure for these things? Maybe there will be in 100 years or 200 years. I don't know. We don't have one now, though. Well, why not? Because we're not sophisticated enough. We haven't figured that out yet. I don't know if it's possible. I hope so. But until then, the best that we have is exposure and response prevention therapy. So why not use it? And why not do the things that you need to do? Will it be comfortable? No. Therapy isn't fun. It isn't comfortable. Right? It's not like you just see on TV where people just sit back on a couch and talk about their childhood or anything like that. No, it's really scary, uncomfortable kinds of things, but it can be very helpful too. Danielle says, I was wondering how you're able to tell when someone's thoughts are OCD. Mine feels so real. They have to feel real, or else it wouldn't be a problem. If it wasn't feeling real, you don't need me. Because if you came into my office and said, yeah, I have this thought, but it doesn't feel really real, so it doesn't really bother me so much, you might think, okay, hey, it was great to meet you. Have a great life. So they have to feel real. And the only thing keeping you from going, or keeping you going, is the hope that it's OCD. Your parents don't believe in therapy, so you can't get an official diagnosis. So, Danielle, one thing that you might consider is many states have the ability for someone to see a therapist, even if they are under 18, for a certain number of sessions before parents must be notified about it. So you might consider that, Danielle, that is a possibility. Now, cost or things may come into play there, I don't know. But just know that there is a potential that the state that you're in does not require your parents to be involved in the first few sessions that you would potentially do. So, okay. All right. Let's see. What else we got? SpongeBob SquarePants. I think I'm agnostic, but thinking I might be wrong, God may actually exist, frightens you. Among the possible penalties for being a skeptic, early death of your loved ones terrifies you the most. If this possibilities ever come true, if my family suffers for me, I think in no way I can tolerate the agony, forgive myself, and move forward. Due to this haunting fear, I'm totally unable to focus on my work right now. Well, here's the issue. Sorry, I just have to. Someone was trying to get a hold of me. I have to tell them to hold on. Here's the issue. If that's the case, then the lack of belief for anybody would cause these things to happen, right? So you have plenty of people who are non-believers who don't have any issue with that whatsoever, right? Who go through life without any kind of belief at all, and don't worry about these very things. So these things in and of themselves, I'm trying to say, are not scary things unless OCD grabs on to these things and starts to put doubts into whatever belief system that you have, right? And believe me, people don't have to be religious to have scrupulosity. You can be a non-believer and have scrupulosity as well, right? So this is an excellent example right here of, man, I don't know that I believe anything, but what if I'm wrong and there's terrible consequences for it, right? So just like we've talked about with everything else, what are you working toward? You are working toward the ability to handle doubt. Doubt is what we are working on, right? How is it that I can handle doubts and insecurities? And you want potentially immediate gratification to know that um, your lack of belief is true and that there won't be anything that will be out there punishing you. The problem is that no one can give you that guarantee. And please, everyone, don't get in the comments. This is not a debate about if religion's right or wrong, or if you just believe everything will be fine. I will delete those comments. So that's not what this is about tonight, right? We're not here to push any of our own beliefs on anybody else. And therapy would be a horrible experience if any of us therapists ever did such a thing as well, too. OCD decreases by one thing, which is learning how to handle discomfort and uncertainty, right? And so you will SpongeBob, have all of these things pop into your head, and your OCD will link them to maybe it's because of your lack of religiosity. But just because OCD makes that link doesn't actually mean that it is true. I mean, I could say I'm in a teal colored room right now, and at least I think it's teal. I don't know. Right? I know about four colors, but aquamarine, maybe, shall we say? Um, but just because I'm in a room this color, does that mean something? Does that mean that uh, I'll have safe driving tonight? Because every time I've ever been in this room, I've driven afterwards. I've never been in a car accident. So does that guarantee me safety, or is that just, you know? Yes, I've been in this room a few times, and yes, I've not had accidents after driving in it, but the two things don't really have anything to do with each other whatsoever, right? OCD can create meanings and relationships in our head to get us to believe that this does cause this or this is related to that. But just because it does it doesn't actually mean that it's true or right or real in any way whatsoever. So keep that in mind, everybody. Don't fall for the trick of OCD, which says, I'm pretty real, just so you know. I mean, I'm really legit. I'm I'm the shit. I really am. I'm the guy. I'm the one. It's time to stop looking at OCD as the end all be all of everything, and as the wisest thing in your life. It, again, it's not, because if it was, and if it was that powerful and that helpful to people, then we would be giving people OCD instead of helping them get rid of it, right? So I'm going to continue to live my life helping people get rid of OCD because I don't see it being a helpful thing whatsoever. Wardell says, I just found out I have pure OCD. I got triggered when I saw a girl that you liked with a person you thought looked better. And now you can't stop thinking about why you were so jealous and envious when I know I really don't care. But my mind keeps saying I do care. And if I didn't, why would I keep having these thoughts? All right. So, Wardell, you can continue this debate if you'd like in your head and try to tell yourself, wait, I don't really believe that. And no, that's not really the case or anything like that. OCD would love you to do that, just so you know. OCD hopes you will just continue to do that over and over and longer and longer and longer. But Wardell, what I'm hoping you're going to do is this. I'm hoping that you're going to say, no, okay. And then you move on. And you just acknowledge and you move on. Right? We acknowledge and we move on. The ceiling could collapse on me in the next 10 minutes. I acknowledge that and I have moved on. Right? Someone was trying to call me. Maybe there's an emergency. Maybe I should stop the webinar right now and make the call back just in case. Or I can acknowledge that there's a call and the thought that there could be an emergency, and I'm going to move on. Right? That's what we're trying to do. That's where we're trying to go. That's our goal. So, Ordell, that's what I want you to do. Work on that moving on, okay? That's what you got to do. Work on that moving on. A reminder to everybody, you're here listening to the Wednesday night webinar from NoCD. NoCD is an app you can download at Google Play or iOS. It's a free download. And if you're looking for teletherapy across the United States or Canada or the UK or Australia, we have that available. We do take lots of insurances, and we're working on getting even more over time as well too. And we also treat other things like body-focused repetitive behaviors such as tics and trichotillomania, and we also do excoriation or skin picking, and we even treat hoarding. And if you might be related or know someone who has OCD but isn't quite ready for the prime time therapy experience, we can do a NoCD 411 session for you where we can give you all sorts of info about OCD and the ways to work and interact with your loved ones. So check us out for that. Feel free to download that app or go to nocd.com as well. Crappie says, my anxiety is so bad when I do ERP, I really, uh, let me try that again. Your anxiety is so bad when I do ERP, like really bad. Okay, sorry. How can you reduce without taking a break? All right. So, crappy OCD wants you to take a break, just so you know. OCD does not want you to do the full exposure and response prevention experience. OCD wants you to stop response prevention in the middle and wants you to take a break, or maybe a stretch, or a diaphragmatic breathing exercise, or a muscle relaxation exercise, or something of that nature. But it definitely does not want you to do the full ERP all the way through. So when this is the theme tonight almost, it's very fascinating. Lots of people are talking tonight about, but it just feels bad to do the ERP. And so what can I do instead? Nothing. You do the ERP. If you need to break it down into smaller things, we can do that, right? We can break it down into smaller steps, little baby steps kind of things. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But you still got to do the ERP, right? There's when and however you approach this, whatever therapeutic stance you might take or anything, there comes a point that no matter what in all of our lives, we do something uncomfortable and we have a choice, right? Uh, let's say somebody, Crappie, was really afraid of bike riding, and so they ride for 3 feet and then they stop and they get off the bike and then they wait 10 minutes until they're calm and then they get back on the bike and they go 3 more feet and then they stop. I'm I'm okay with that if you start therapy that way, but I'm not okay with that if we're a year into therapy and that's still happening, because that's telling me then this person is not willing to tolerate the discomfort that is happening, right? And very often when somebody has an anxiety disorder or OCD, that threshold for feeling uncomfortable gets lower and lower and lower. And tiny little things then can make you feel really awful and horrible when maybe just 2 or 3 years ago, it would have taken a major thing to potentially get you to feel that way, right? So, Crappie, the goal is to thicken that skin, right? To build up that tolerance to things. If you need to break it down into smaller steps, go ahead. But you've got to build off of those smaller steps. That's not the end, that's the beginning and where we need to go. Okay? Matthew says, I have suicidal OCD. You get intrusive thoughts about hurt yourself. Do it now. You're all alone. You don't want to do that. It scares you. Any ideas what to do, what exposure to do, your first ERP? You're just getting over COVID and feel overwhelmed by these thoughts. Will you ever be clear of these thoughts? You just want to be normal again. Well, Matthew, definitely, I wouldn't do any ERP on this one without really engaging with a therapist, right? Because I don't want you pushing yourself or testing yourself. Then it's because unfortunately, there's people who want to try that, right? And then say how far can I go on these types of things, and that's when people without trying to can get hurt, right? Like, oh, I'm afraid of the edge of things, so I'll just get closer and closer. How far can I push myself or anything? There comes a point where there's a limit where I'm going to say to someone, that's good enough. We don't need to go further than this. We're doing just fine right here, right? But that's where it's good to have the guidance of a therapist, Matthew. So I would really encourage you, before you start any ERP, get yourself in touch with a good ERP therapist who can guide you through that experience, because I think it would be very helpful. Your Majesty says advice for PTSD flashbacks paired with harm OCD. Well, sure, that makes a lot of sense, because, in fact, many people with PTSD go on to develop OCD, because OCD, being the opportunistic jerk that it is, says, "Oh, you've been through a trauma. I have a guaranteed way to make sure you never have another trauma again. Here's what you do. You do these compulsions. These compulsions prevent bad things from happening. Traumas are bad things, therefore, compulsions can prevent traumas as well. And bam, life will be great now because you'll never have a bad thing happen again because you're doing compulsions." So, Your Majesty, make for part of your ERP, expose yourself to some of the themes in your flashbacks and don't do any compulsions and learn that you can handle that. That's what you need to do. That's what I want you to do. Brendan Miller says, I have OCD where I get intrusive, disturbing thoughts about suicide. Another one. You recently changed taking pills at night to in the morning when you woke up before you take them. Your head seems like crazy with 1,000 crazy thoughts about hurting yourself. Will you ever be able to have a normal day with no crappy thoughts? I don't have money to see anyone. Can you do ERP by yourself, and what do you recommend? Again, I mean, I always would recommend that you work with somebody, and uh, there, there may be even. I know there's some groups and organizations out there for intensive programs like that have charity care available. So you might check that out, Brendan, to see. But I do want to challenge um, your notion of will you ever be able to have a normal day with no crappy thoughts? I don't know anyone in the world who's ever gone through an entire day without a thought that they didn't find crappy. I never have personally, and in fact, thanks. I say tongue in cheek, thanks to all my OCD friends out there, I never will either because I've pretty much absorbed every intrusive thought that anybody I've ever treated has ever had. And so now it's very hard for me to do almost anything without having some kind of intrusive thought associated with it. If I'm driving and there's people crossing the street, I assign a point value to them of what it would be if I were to run them over. And, if if I'm on a stairway or an escalator with someone, all I can do is think about pushing them down the stairs because I've treated so many people who are afraid of what if I were to push somebody down the stairs that I now can't take stairs or escalators without having that very same thought. So I don't know that your goal, Brendan, is to go through a day without a crappy thought. I don't think that that's very normal, personally. I think normal is we have crappy thoughts and we get to a point where we're just like, whatever, and we move on and we're not overwhelmed by them. That's where I would want you to go and have a goal for that. But check out for places that might have some charity care as well. Um, Henry says, I just found out I have pure O. I've been through the ringer and have had sexual orientation OCD, harm OCD, pedophilic OCD, death OCD, you name it. I have normal days when I get no thoughts. I don't know what exposures, let me skip down a little bit, to do first. As I've read, you need something in the middle range and not low, not too low. And you need to do this by yourself because you don't have any money. So you need to know a good hierarchy. There's plenty of very good, self-help books out there as well too that you might take a look at that will give you examples of what hierarchies are. So you might want to check some of those out. My buddy John Grayson has kind of the classic book on OCD that you might want to read and gives lots of examples of what to do for obsessive compulsive disorder. So following some of those things might be really, really helpful if that's the case. But again, check out charity care potentially as well too. Hey, Dr. M, how can I recognize if this thought is OCD or not? I have false memory and struggle with the thought action fusion. Should I use this formula? Urgency plus anxiety plus doubt, is it real or not, equals OCD. By the way, you are by far the best therapist in OCD. Oh, well, thank you. You're seeing an OCD therapist. Awesome. I hope they're very helpful. Let's see. Let's look at your equation. Urgency plus anxiety plus doubt. It is real or not equals OCD. I kind of like how you're looking at there. I think that you're onto something, and that would be things that I would talk to people about. Because OCD wants it done yesterday, not now. Yesterday, it had. How dare you have waited so long to do something like that? And you get a lot of anxiety, or let me add something too, anxiety parentheses, because it could be doubt, it could be guilt, it could be shame, it could be disgust. Anxiety isn't the only emotion that one might experience there. And doubt, here's the doubt. So we have that doubt part. So we'll move it over there. Doubt, is it real or not? Yeah, I mean, I like how you're approaching it, but what I want you to do eventually, Jaybird, is not have to run through that formula every single time manually, but just to be able that it's almost like a computer that something pops into your head and it's an automatic in and out. And when that in is there, and you're just like, okay, and that's your out, is the okay, without having to spend a lot of time thinking about each of those things, because having to spend a lot of time thinking about each of those things could keep you stuck and lead you to do more compulsions, or rituals, if that's the case. And so I want to make sure that that's not what's happening in that kind of a situation. But I do like where you're going with that, and I think that it's pretty cool. Maybe there's other fun equation. Another fun equation that I've liked is Alec Pollard's E minus RP equals nothing, as in exposure without response prevention isn't going to get you anywhere. So, Jay, maybe we'll develop a whole new math class about equations for treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder and see how it is. But I kind of like where you're going there, so it's nice. Willie says, "Hey, Dr. Patrick McGrath, that's me. Why is my head always a mess when I wake up? Is it possible to not have the fear of the thoughts without the meds? Because it seems like before I have my meds, I'm panicky. Like I thought SSRIs are supposed to last till the next time you take it, but it seems like they run out in 16 hours. And my head's crazy with thoughts before I take my pills. Thoughts are crazy, but not used to." Okay. So, here's what I would say is, if you're going 16 hours without your meds, I don't know if you're taking them twice a day or something like that. You might want to set an alarm. If they're doing it twice a day, you might want to make sure then that it's just at the 12-hour mark instead of the 16 and the 8-hour mark. And that way you're evening out the medication a little bit better for yourself, and it's more even in your system and not built up and then slowly, titrates and half-lives, and then you're at very, very low levels, and then you kind of push it up again, and then it slows down and slows down. So you might do yourself a favor by setting an alarm and making sure that you're taking it at times that are better. I would run that past your prescriber, though. I'm not a prescriber, so I can't tell you exactly what to do in that situation, but I think that's probably something that wouldn't be so bad to do. Danielle says, "How are you supposed to live with uncertainty that doesn't seem possible no matter how much I've tried?" Danielle, I don't have the certainty that this StreamYard call will continue and that the internet will or will not be on. So Danielle, I'm challenged there because you live with uncertainty every single moment of your life, Danielle. So when you say to me, how are you supposed to live with uncertainty that just doesn't seem possible? Danielle, it's all you do is live with uncertainty. It's all any of us do. What certainty do any of us have about most of the things in our lives? I mean, you may have some certainty about things like, you know, I, I'm pretty certain that the desk that this computer is on it feels very solid. It's a little wobbly, but I'm I have a relatively darn good degree of certainty that this desk is not going to collapse during the rest of this 20 minutes that we will be on our webinar together with each other. Um, but I have no guarantee that there will or won't be an earthquake in the next 20 minutes, right? That could happen. Um, I have no guarantee that somebody won't lose control of their car and hit the house I'm in. That that could happen. So those are just two uncertainties right there, Danielle. And I could spend the rest of this show, I could spend the next 20 minutes telling you everything that I have uncertainty about and still live my life and still do this webinar, even though I have uncertainty about just tens of thousands of things. So, Danielle, you're asking the wrong question, I believe. It's not how do you live with uncertainty? It's how do I live with my OCD telling me that uncertainty is a bad thing? And the answer to that is to do ERP and to allow yourself to realize, huh, look at that. Just because OCD is throwing this uncertainty bomb at me does not at all mean in any way that I must pay any attention to it whatsoever at all. Because Danielle, the day that you actually do have 100% certainty, please come back to this webinar and let us all know that you have found the way to have 100% certainty in everything. Because not one person on this webinar has it at all, and therefore it's not the goal, because none of us have it at all. I'm hoping everyone's doing well. No ceilings collapsed on anyone. I'm pretty sure that they did not, but I always like to check. Rambo says, a few years ago you had an extreme panic attack, but you don't know what's going on in the moment. From this comes feelings of dissociation and feeling like you're losing control. Then OCD thoughts flood. Rambo, interoceptive exposures are going to be the best thing for you, and find a good behavioral therapist who does interoceptive exposures. Those are the best things you can do for panic, and I highly, highly recommend them, that you do that, and it will teach you how to deal with all of the symptoms of panic and the dissociations and all the things that you really do not like. Okay. Logan says, can OCD make you see things? Meaning, if there's a particular word number, etc., related to your fear obsession, can OCD make you see or notice these things more than you would otherwise? Well, not just OCD can do that, but anything can do that. You buy a car, and suddenly you see that car everywhere. You never noticed it before you bought that car, maybe, but now that you've bought that car, every time you're driving, you see that car, right? So it's just a normal thing of life. It's not just OCD that does that. It's an absolutely normal experience of life. Okay. Andrew says, sometimes I think, why bother? Is this a part of OCD? It could be. OCD may say, why bother doing any treatment at all? Just as a way to keep you doing OCD. So watch out for those little tricks and ploys that OCD uses. Okay. R says, when doing your exposure, is it okay to practice relaxing your body into discomfort? Into the discomfort, not as a compulsion, but to untense parts of your body while pushing into the discomfort from the exposure. So this is an old form of therapy. There was Joel Wolpe, who's kind of known as the father of really the behavioral therapy movement experience, utilized something that he called reciprocal inhibition, right? And he did a type of therapy where he would have people, he called it systematic desensitization. He would have people get very relaxed, and then he would introduce an uncomfortable thought to them. And the idea was you couldn't be uncomfortable and relaxed at the same time, right? So the relaxation was supposed to counteract the discomfort experienced during the thoughts. And it was the first attempt at really treating anxiety. Out of that grew things like exposure and response prevention, cognitive behavioral therapy, and all the work that we do today. But that was really the beginning idea around it. So what you're doing is kind of the base form of what was done, I'd say 50 years ago. The problem becomes, even though you say not as a compulsion, there's a very good chance that relaxing does become a compulsion, and you learn the only way to handle discomforting things is to do the relaxation. So if you do it, a couple of times, in the first time or two that you're doing the exposure as a way to kind of ease yourself in, I don't have an issue with that, as long as you don't do it more than a few times, and then you're taking on doing the thing without doing it whatsoever. Okay, that's what I would say. But maybe the better way to do it is to do a lower level exposure that you don't need to do any of that, relaxing with. Get yourself used to that and continuously build up the tolerance off of that. You might consider that as well too, as a way to do it. Elizabeth says, my OCD is both scrupulosity and relationship. Both your boyfriend and you had spouses who left your previous marriages. and you're constantly fearful that you might have done something to make them leave us. Well, you're going to hate this answer, Elizabeth, but you might have. Maybe you did, right? I can't tell you that you did or didn't do that, nor I bet does anybody else ever tell you that to the point that you believe it to be true or not true. I'm betting, Elizabeth, every time someone says to you, Elizabeth, you didn't do anything. They're a jerk. They left you for blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, thank you so much. But then that creeps back in again. But what if I did do something? I just didn't know it. What if I didn't tell them everything? What if I'm hiding things? What if, right? Elizabeth, I I don't know why your spouse left you or your current, partner's spouse left them either. I have no idea. Can't tell you. And maybe it was all them, and maybe it was all you, and maybe it was somewhere in the middle, right? OCD is going to demand, though, that you are convinced 100% that you had nothing to do with it whatsoever, that it was all them. But keep this in mind, Elizabeth. The nickname of OCD is the doubting disorder. And do you know what the doubting disorder does? It doubts everything that it's told, even though it demands an answer of certainty. And when one of your friends who comes up to you with 100% certainty in their voice and says, Elizabeth, I know you, I knew your spouse, you did nothing wrong. That certainty feels good for about 12 seconds. And then your OCD comes back with, yeah, but what if? So the doubting disorder demands certainty but does not accept it. Elizabeth, I don't know why there was a breakup, but I do know this. OCD's wasting a lot of precious time and energy on you trying to figure that out instead of being involved in the relationship that you are in and living the life that you want to live in that relationship. I want you to think about that, Elizabeth. Okay? Do you want to have the relationship that you're in, or do you want to worry about the relationship that you're not in? Think about where you want to go with that. Megan says, yeah, the seizure last Friday, they think it has to do with your anxiety. So, Megan, make sure you're following good treatment advice and you're working with someone who's going to really be monitoring you for a while so we see what's going to happen. Caitlin asked about good advice for a backdoor spike. Oh, Caitlin, go to last week's show because we talked in significant detail about this last week. But just recognize that it's just another OCD trickery that it tries to do, and it will turn on you and say, oh, well, you used to be afraid that you might do that, and now that you're not afraid of it, it must mean that you like it and you want to do it, so you really are the sick person that you were afraid that you were, and therapy caused that to happen. That's what it is, right? OCD does not want to go away. OCD will do anything that it possibly can to stick around. Okay? It's a jerk, but you don't have to listen to it. But you do have to listen to this. NoCD is the sponsor of tonight's webinar, and we would love for you to check us out at nocd.com or to download the NoCD app as well. And if you're looking for teletherapy, we do that. And if you're looking for things like a NoCD 411 session where you want to learn information about OCD because you have a friend or family member who isn't doing treatment, but you want to know how to best help them interact with them, we do that. If you want help with hoarding, we do that. You want help with skin picking or hair pulling or ticks, we do that as well too. So check us out at nocd.com or download our NoCD app. Emily says, why is the thing that people with OCD think they'll be schizophrenic? Oh, isn't that fascinating? We talked about that right at the beginning of the show. So we did that one. OCD loves to be afraid of something, right? So all you need is a little what if, and that's what OCD is going to jump on. Laney says, do I have any thoughts on rumination-focused ERP? No, I don't, because I haven't really studied much of it. So I don't know a ton about it and what Michael's doing. it's one of those things on the list, but it's for those of you who know, it's been a hell of a year. So I've not gotten around to it yet, but I would like to take a look and see what I can see from it. So. Uh, Metal for Life, 1970, says, I'm struggling with stuck words, phrases, and the urge to verbalize them, which might cost me your job, relationship, reputation. You can't get them out of your head. How can I find relief? ERP isn't working. Metal for Life, I'm wondering if you would consider making a loop tape of all those words or phrases and just listening to it constantly and getting to a point that you're just so bored with those words or phrases that they kind of fall out of your head after a while, instead of being so focused on them and hoping that you don't say them and then wondering what would happen if you did and feeling like that would be awful or horrible. So that's what I want you to consider metal for life is doing kind of that, almost like a flooding kind of tape, where you're going to just listen to those words and phrases over and over and over and over again. And I think you will likely become so absolutely bored with them that they'll fall out. Just like if you have a song stuck in your head, the absolutely best thing to do if you have a song stuck in your head is to listen to that song over and over again, and then eventually the song falls out of your head. Jerry says, can you get diagnosed during your first NoCD therapy session? We can usually come up with a pretty good idea in the first session. We go into the second session to work on some confirmation things as well too. So usually that first or second, we're pretty good there. Hannah says, can you get diagnosed with OCD through the app? Well, the app is a community of people, and there's lots of tools and everything. The app's not going to diagnose you, though, but you can meet with a therapist through the app, and they will be able to help you with that. So. Babes says, I'm starting therapy on Friday. How might therapy address OCD around death and dying, specifically the fear of death and dying? Well, Babes, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all of the things that you are afraid of about death and dying. It could be how you would die, and would it be painful or not? It could be what happens after you die, and I can't deal with the fact that I don't know what's going to happen after I die, and what if there's not an afterlife, or what if there is, but it's not the one that I wanted, and all those things. So, babes, we would really have to do a lot of kind of in-depth searching there about what are all the things about death and dying that you fear, and then we would develop a hierarchy around those things to help you face those fears and learn that you can handle those very things. And getting to that point of being able to be comfortable with the fact that we are all going to die. We're not going to be here forever. And none of us truly 100% knows what's going to happen. Lots of people may tell you that they do, but let's deal with the uncertainty of it and just kind of accept it. It's the last exposure that we'll ever do, potentially, right? I would say that is the last exposure we'll ever do, is to experience what it's like to not be living anymore, and we'll see where it goes, right? That's how we're going to have to face it. Self-help books, I talked about John Grayson's book is really great out there, so you might want to check that. My buddy John Hirschfield's got a bunch of books out as well too that you might want to check on OCD. I wrote a book on OCD called the OCD Answer Book that might be helpful. In terms of hoarding, there are books. There's some books by Gail Steckedy and Randy Frost that are out there. Robin Zazio's got a book out there as well too. Dave Tolan has contributed to some of those books on hoarding as well, so you may look up those names, Steckedy and Frost and Tolan and Zazio, and you'll find some good books on hoarding as well. Stephanie says, I've got extremely bad OCD that latches onto your partner. It forces you to confess every past mistake, real memory to your partner, including repeating or adding more details to the confessions. So, Stephanie, what does your partner do when you do this? That's what I would want to know, because if your partner is accommodating this, then they're kind of playing a role in the whole experience. And now you, Stephanie, may have this belief that how can your partner truly love you if they don't know absolutely everything about you and everything that you've done? Because otherwise, maybe you're lying to them and this relationship is a ruse. And if they do find out one day and you haven't told them, then they could leave you, and that would be awful horrible. So maybe it's just better if you tell them everything now so that they can know everything about you and make an informed decision about it. But Stephanie, I'm going to wonder, would you want anyone to do that to you as well too? Would anyone doing the same thing to you make you feel better in your relationship? Probably not, right? For many of you who are who are longtime listeners, you know that my wife passed away a couple of months ago, and it's been kind of interesting learning about her as I go through all of her stuff, right? So you find, letters from old boyfriends or pictures or, things that she wrote in a notebook here or there or something like that. And I'm realizing and learning all these things I didn't know about her. And frankly, I'm totally cool with the fact that I didn't know any of those things about her when we were together. Because you know what? It wouldn't have helped the relationship in any way whatsoever, and it might have, heck, who knows, it could have led to some weird conversations. So I'm thrilled with the fact that I didn't know all of the stuff that that I now know about her in this case. um, Stephanie, you're doing this even though it feels as if it's in service to the relationship. You're actually doing this in service to your obsessive compulsive disorder. And every confession you're making to your partner is not because of anything other than OCD's telling you to do it and you're doing it as a compulsion. So your job, Stephanie, and for your partner as well too, is to not do any more of these confessions, and for your partner to be like, listen, uh, I'm going to walk away from this because I've been told by the doctor to not listen to this anymore. This is not anything that I'm going to be a part of, is you confessing these things to me anymore. So I am not going to listen to it. Okay. And that's where we might have to go to and be with, right? That's where you're going to think about some stuff. So, Stephanie, it might be helpful for both you and your partner to do a couple of therapy sessions together and learn this and see, if there might be some good help for you. I know that there is good help for you with ERP, so I would hope that you would take advantage. Elizabeth says you compulsively pray and seek reassurance over your husband leaving you that it must be your fault. When you try to do exposure to the fear, you get overwhelmed and give in. How do you get strong enough? Slowly and gradually you do things. You start with the lowest level stuff first, and you live with that discomfort and you learn how to handle that discomfort of that thing. Um, Remember, just as I've said earlier in the other relationship discussion, Elizabeth, nobody's going to convince you uh, ever that you weren't at fault for anything. Your OCD is going to blame you for absolutely everything, and then say to you, "But if you want to feel better, do these compulsions to see if that's actually true." Right? Remember, OCD is a jerk and a liar. So, Elizabeth, you have to decide: are are you going to be there um, for yourself and do things that are good for you, like ERP, or are you going to give in, and you're going to check, and you're going to seek reassurance, and you're going to pray. And in this instance, it's a prayer that is a compulsion, right? Not all prayers are prayers, right? Some prayers are prayers. Prayers would be to commune with your higher power. Other prayers are compulsions. Those are the prayers we want to stop because those aren't actually prayers. Those are compulsions. Those compulsions, those prayers need to go, right? And allow yourself to be with the discomfort. Well, everyone, once again, you've spent an hour with me on our Wednesday night webinar. As always, it's been a blast, and I thank you for all of the time. Really appreciate you all being here tonight, and in a fascinating colored new room, by the way. Just wonderful to have joined you from such a bright colored room. I look forward to seeing all of you again next week, and just remember this: your job is to live the life that you want to live and not the life that your OCD wants you to live. Keep that in mind. We'll see y'all soon.